How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, I am delighted to have you with me. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you'd like to be on the program. If you will do me a favor and text ARMY, text the word ARMY to 33777. You'll get a link back. If you put in your name, email, zip code, you'll be in our system so we can communicate with you when you're in your area, but we'll also be able, once you then follow that link from thereafter, give you your portal so you can see all your elected officials and their contact info if you want to reach them by phone or email or social media. I've waited until the third hour to say something. If I sound a little off today, you know I got those braces a couple months ago. They had to add brackets on the far back molars on top, and my teeth hurt and my head hurts, and it hurts to eat, it hurts to chew, it hurts to talk, it just hurts. It hurts to swallow. If my lips move at all, I just get stabbed, and it hurts, and I am half a mind to show up at the orthodontist office today and say, just get it all done. I'll do dentures when I'm 70. I'll pull all my teeth and do dentures. This is miserable. I don't like it. I'm trying to give myself the weekend. They say everything scabs over, your lips, your gums get calloused, and it stops hurting. I'll give it a few more days, but this is garbage. I don't like this. I guess it's a heck of a weight loss program, though. Can't eat anything. Okay. Now, I want to actually start with Daniel's phone call before I move into other topics. Daniel, you're up next. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric. How are you?
Good.
Good. Hey, I'm a pastor here in Dublin, Georgia, and I heard you mention, I guess weeks or so ago, about 49% of evangelicals are not going to vote. Now, the church I pastor, we don't seem to have that problem, but my question to you is, how do we, as believers, get people involved that are other believers to go out and vote? You've listed a lot of Kamala Harris's past policies that she tried to enforce in California. You mentioned about suing the nuns and things like that. How do we get them to see the great need here?
Okay, first of all, let me do the number. The 49% won't vote. There actually is some data out there, and it was produced by Arizona Christian University in a survey that about 30 to 32 million Christians say they're not going to vote. Now, it wasn't evangelicals, it was self-identified Christians, and that's part of the problem is that it's not necessarily evangelicals. It's all Christians, Catholic, Orthodox, mainline, and evangelical Christians saying they're not going to vote. Now, how do you get Christians involved? I will tell you, Daniel, don't shoot me anybody for saying this, but I will say that, as I have said, if you are horrified by the caliber of the candidates on both sides, showing up and voting and leaving that line blank, so you vote the ballot, but you leave that line blank, is going to do more to encourage the parties to get better candidates than anything else. Staying home just means you're apathetic. But what I would tell you as someone of faith who cast my ballot, who did vote, who did not leave it blank, is that you have the opportunity as a person of faith blessed to live in the United States of America to participate in a democracy in a way few people in church history have ever been able to do, and more so few people on the planet have ever been able to do. Now, stewardship does sometimes require you leave a field fallow, hoping for stronger crops next time. And I get that. But if your voice is not heard at all, no one cares about you politically. So if Christians want to be heard and want to change the country, they still need to go cast a ballot, even if they leave lines on the ballot blank, because the politicians in America are going to come find you, and they're going to want to listen to you. Why did you cast your ballot and leave it blank? And here's the thing. They're not going to know it was you specifically, but when you survey people after it, and they voted but didn't vote in, say, the presidential race or a state house race or something like that, it becomes a significant data point on improvement of the quality of candidates. So, for example, here's what I tell people. If you look back at 2000, I said this the other day, George W. Bush lost millions of evangelicals. That might be actually what you're thinking about, Daniel, because it was over 40% of evangelicals in 2000 said it out. And at that time, the Bush campaign then completely revamped all their policies to try to woo the evangelical vote in 2004, and it worked. What I would tell evangelicals right now is it is rare on the planet today for a Christian to be in a country where they can cast a ballot to shape the future of their government. And they should not look on that and take it for granted. It is a blessing to be in this country. One of the blessings of liberty in this country is to cast a vote. And if you want to show up and vote and leave a line blank, you're going to have more power than if you just stay home, because if you stay home, you are registered as not a voter and you are no longer concerned to either political party. So if you want the political parties to pay attention to you as a Christian, you must go cast a ballot, even if you leave everything on the ballot blank except one thing. You got to go cast a ballot or else you're going to be just ignored.
Gotcha.
So hopefully that answers your question.
It.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, to that point, and Daniel, thanks very much for the phone call. I wasn't going to stay on this topic, but I will here for just a minute. If you want your politicians and elected officials to care about you, to care about what you think, to care about your values, you have to go cast a ballot. I am very sympathetic to the people who say, I'm just going to leave the presidential line blank. I get it, particularly if you just can't bring yourself to vote for Donald Trump. I wish you would leave it blank. Don't vote for Kamala Harris. You are voting for someone ruthlessly hostile to people of faith. If you vote for her, and she's going to view your vote as an endorsement of her position, she's not going to view it as you trying to stop Trump. She's going to view it as affirmation of her ruthlessly hostile positions to people of faith. So if you can't bring yourself to vote for Trump, go vote, but leave it blank. And here's why. The undervote in this country is a powerful tool to force the parties to change. If you sit home and you don't vote, you get labeled a low propensity voter. You don't get labeled a conscientious objector to voting. You get labeled a low propensity voter. They don't care about you. If you show up and you cast a ballot and you say, I just can't vote for this race, whether it's the presidential race, whether it's a congressional race, whether it's state house or state senate or mayoral race, whatever, that sends a huge signal that you are engaged in the process, but you just can't bring yourself to vote for a candidate, and that forces better candidate quality in the future. I would encourage people of faith to go stand in line with everyone else on Tuesday if you're not going to go vote early, cast a ballot, and only vote in the races you feel passionate about. And that registers your contempt for candidate quality, that registers your contempt for the direction of the country, but it shows that you're someone who hasn't checked out on the process. And that matters powerfully. All right, Jackie calling from Dayton, Ohio. You're going to be up next. Jackie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Eric?
Great. What's going on?
Okay, a couple things. I do have a couple questions for you if I have your ear. So I wonder how they actually do the polling, because when Harris came out, like originally when she announced her presidency or candidacy, she was like around 45% in between that field the whole amount of time. And I just find that really hard to believe, considering her rating was so low before that. So How do they do the polls to come up with that?
Okay, you got to understand that the Democrats were deeply disaffected. They don't like Kamala Harris, and they were despondent at the fact that Joe Biden was going to cost them everything. So when Biden drops out and Kamala Harris comes in, what you saw in the polling were the Democrats telling themselves, this is better than what we had. We can like this. And that's why you saw this big polling shift. So they poll 1,000, 2,000 people around the country. They do a statistical sampling of those 1,000, 2,000 people. So you get X number of Democrats, X number of Republicans, X number of black voters, white voters, old voters, young voters. And then they track the opinions of those people over time demographically. So it's not, they don't pull the same person every time, but they pull the same number of black people, same number of white people, same number of Republicans, same number of Democrats. And so they can get that track. So when you had all these Democrats thinking, oh my God, Joe Biden is terrible and Kamala Harris is terrible and we're going to lose, you had a Democratic satisfaction rate of about 55 to 60%. When Joe Biden drops out and Kamala Harris is the nominee, they're suddenly like, oh, Trump is off his game. We can win this thing. And Democratic satisfaction went up to like 89%. And so all of a sudden you saw this huge shift in the polls that corresponded with they're psychologically excited now about their race. The problem for Kamala Harris and the Democrats is that psychological excitement did not last, and she has been trickling down ever since.
Okay. All right. And then you had mentioned before, you said, I've been through enough elections. It's not going to be the end of the world. Okay. Which I would typically agree with. However, I was in Boston recently, and I was sitting at a bar talking to my neighbor friend there or whatever, and they had no idea about Harris's one world order plan. And so I do think that is going to change things dramatically from like how it was in the past, to your point of, we'll live through it. But if she gets in and they start packing the court and, just doing all the things she says she's going to do, then we may not be able to recover from it. So what do you think about the one world order?
I would say that the issue there is that she's not going to have the votes in Congress to be able to do this stuff. And anything she can do from the executive branch can be undone by the next president. The Democrats at this point have factored in they're going to lose the Senate. They're going to lose West Virginia. They're going to lose Montana. That gives the Senate Republicans 51 seats. So they can't get rid of the filibuster. They can't pack the courts. They can't confirm judges or executive appointments without consent by the Republicans in the Senate. So there goes away that plan. So what does she do by the executive orders? Well, the problem for Kamala Harris in doing this through the executive branch is the Looper Bright decision in the Supreme Court this past term. Looper Bright was a decision that got rid of something called the Chevron standard. The Chevron standard was a way that the executive branch could interpret a law from Congress and tell the judges, you're not allowed to second guess how we've interpreted this law. The Supreme Court got rid of that in the Looper Bright decision, and now the judges get to interpret the laws instead of the executive branch when they write regulations. So anything Kamala Harris wants to do, one world order, you name it, she can't get it passed through Congress. And if she tries to do it through the executive branch, all the Trump-appointed judges get to stop it. So she's kind of blocked in every direction from being able to do that stuff. So it's not going to fundamentally change the country in a direction that she wants to go, because anything she does through executive order can be undone by the next president, and she can't get anything done through Congress. So that kind of kills her agenda. And if she's president in 2 years, you'll have a midterm election that typically tends to be good for the party out of power, which would help the GOP, which just will make it even more difficult for her to get stuff done. And then, by the way, the Democrats are fine with that. They just don't want Trump in the White House. The Republicans, though, are playing for keeps. Trump is trying to go for a trifecta. And, the odds are growing that the Republicans might actually be able to pick up all three houses of Congress, which would allow them to do a whole lot more. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, there is some breaking news happening at this very moment. Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, is announcing that North Korean troops are now on Ukraine's border preparing for entry. Western powers have said if North Korean troops do cross into Ukraine, that there will be no more rules on how Ukraine uses Western technology and weapons systems. A profound escalation of the war in Ukraine happening right now as North Korean troops arrive at the Ukrainian border. That is breaking news happening right now. Now, speaking of being across the nation, I am now out in California, and we have a caller from North San Francisco. Pamela, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, Eric. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So your breaking news just disturbed me a little bit more, because I was going to say that I find hope listening to you. But a couple of days ago, when you talked about the possibility of the escalation in North Korea and their troops in Russia, as a military mom, I feel like people are not paying enough attention to that. And I've been hopeful here because while we're only about 18% Republican in our county, our registrations are up in our county like 3 times as much as the Democrats since the primary.
Wow.
So while we may not see a lot of races, we're seeing progress. And that has kept me hopeful. And then your compliment that someone brought up earlier, I love the reminder that, God is in charge, and to keep the faith that no matter what happens, because that's my primary reason as a military mom to vote for Donald Trump. Commander-in-chief is his job, and nobody else is going to get us out of these wars, I believe. So
yeah, and look, I mean, if past is the best predictor of the future, I mean, he didn't engage in wars when he was president. So now, your child, what branch of the military?
Army.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Yeah,
my nephew just joined into the Air Force, and he's in the Air National Guard in Mississippi and doing logistics and now training and trying to go to sniper school and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, these things weigh on the back of my mind too. And it's not my kid, it's my nephew. And seeing the world deteriorate, that it wasn't like this when Trump was president, I can totally see that being persuasive. And it is encouraging as well to see the number of voter registration increases out there in a place that seems hostile. 18%, you guys are a rare commodity out there. But Pamela, thank you for the phone call, and God bless your family and your service to the country. Keep the faith, though. Be a happy warrior. Everything will be okay. God's in control. Now, I got to tell you guys about my bank, Old Glory Bank. If you go to oldglorybank.com, you can sign up online to get an account. It takes less than 8 minutes online to do. That's how I discovered them over a year ago. I had heard about this new bank starting. It was by conservatives for conservatives and would be very friendly to conservative businesses. It's like, I think I want to use a bank like that. So I moved my bank account over to Old Glory Bank. I've got a no-fee checking and no-fee savings account. You can get one for your child as well if they've got cash they need to deposit. It's possible with Old Glory Bank. You can use the app in 88,000 retail locations around the country to deposit cash in the bank. It works. I've done it. All you have to do is go to oldglorybank.com. You sign up. And by the way, develop a relationship with them. They do mortgages, they do loans, they do car loans, CDs, have great interest rate, business checking, business savings, really good business rates. Oldglorybank.com. It's by conservatives for conservatives. It is a great bank. It is my bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, terms and conditions apply. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States, and I am delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Before I move on, I want to go to Ricky's phone call. Welcome to the show, Ricky. How are you?
Hey, Eric. How are you?
Great.
Man, I'm going to tell you, I respect you. I think you fair and balanced. You call a spade a spade.
I appreciate
I like
it, although you're going to upset the call screener. I've already gotten a compliment today, and he's going to be very mad you said something nice.
But, I was telling him, what normally the first thing comes out of our mouth is what we mean. Biden meant that.
Mm-hmm.
He meant it. And then they had to go clean it up, and the people on Morning Joke helped them. I call them Morning Joke, helped them out. And majority of them feel the same way. And I would rather say Kamala feels the same way, but she can't say that because she got to be politically correct. She's running for president.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I heard when I first picked you up, you was talking about election integrity. Let me tell you, they don't want it. And it just infuriates me. Trump lost the election, granted. He did. But it infuriates me where these people act like that the Democrats don't cheat too. They do.
Mm-hmm.
I have two friends that told me in that 2020 election, individually, neither one knew I talked to the other one, told me they got one of their liberal friends told them what they did was they ordered ballots for everybody in the house. The wife filled out the ballot and say, sign here.
Yep.
This is what they said. They told
I
them.
know people on the Republican and the Democratic side. You know, my dad told me when he was a kid, his grandfather was his dad had been injured, was on crutches or in a wheelchair, and his dad would take them all in and made sure they voted Democrat one by one, staying in the polls, and he'd go last, but had to make sure they all voted Democrat. Yeah, I mean, yeah, families do this particularly. And this is one of those things that they engage with and do, and like ballot harvesting. I don't deny the Democrats harvest ballots. They do, and they're very good at it. And what I think Republicans think is that every ballot that has been collected by a Democrat and taken to the polls has to be thrown out. That's not actually what the law says. What the law says is that the votes get counted, but that person who harvested the ballots is in trouble. And you got to distinguish those things in your mind. The Democrats are playing for keeps, but there are legal barriers to challenge elections that have to be met. And in 2020, the Republicans, before Republican-appointed judges, didn't meet those challenges. And I said this yesterday somewhat flippantly, but I really do believe it. I really believe that we're going to see more people arrested this year for tampering in elections than ever. Because I believe there are so many Republicans who are convinced the Democrats are going to steal the election that these Republicans are going to do things that get them in trouble. And I really believe that so many Democrats are convinced the Republicans are going to steal the election that the Democrats are going to try to steal the election for real this time. And some of them are going to get arrested too. Every time. Remember, in the January 2021 runoffs in Georgia for the Senate, a Republican lawyer in Florida announced that he was going to move to Georgia, change his voter registration so that he could vote for the GOP and encourage other people to do it. And he got in legal trouble for having done that. I really do think that we're going to see Democrats and Republicans alike convinced that, well, the other side's going to steal it, so I got to steal it first. And we're going to have just chaos. That's one reason I hope the election's not as close as the polls suggest it is. Because I think both sides are going to do things that get them in trouble. It really is a dangerous thing. Now, Ricky, to your other point, absolutely Joe Biden meant to call Trump supporters garbage. Do you know how I know that Joe Biden meant what he said? Not just because he said it, but that he meant it. Because this is the party that calls Trump supporters Nazis. This is the party that calls Trump supporters deplorable. This is the party that calls Trump supporters irredeemable, and Joe Biden agreed with all of those things. And Joe Biden is the man who said Mitt Romney would put black people back in chains. If they're willing to say those things, why aren't they willing to call Trump supporters garbage? Of course they're willing to call Trump supporters garbage. The only reason they denied it after the fact is because it blew up on stage at a Donald Trump rally as it happened, and the Trump campaign made a big deal out of it immediately, and the Harris campaign and the Biden team thought, oh, gosh, we better walk this back. Had the Trump campaign not responded so quickly to it, they would never have walked it back. They would have embraced it. And in fact, before the night was over, you had Harris supporters saying, garbage, that's the least of it. They're worse than that. They're Nazis. Of course he meant it. Now, I'm going to get to this story. I don't have as much time for it, but I'm glad to get there. Abigail Schreier has this in the Free Press. The kindergarten intifada. Let me read you some of this. In August, the second largest teacher union chapter in the country, more than 35,000 members of United Teachers Los Angeles, met at the Bonaventure Hotel in L.A. to discuss, among other things, how to turn their K-12 students against Israel. In front of a PowerPoint that read how to be a teacher and an organizer and not get fired, history teacher Ron Gochez elaborated on stealth methods for indoctrinating students. but how to transport busloads of kids to an anti-Israel rally during the school day without arousing suspicion. A lot of us have been to those protest actions, have brought our students. Now, I don't take the students in my personal car, Goches told the crowd. Then, referring to the LA Unified School District, he explained, I have members of our organization who are not LAUSD employees. They take those students. And I just happen to be at the same place and at the same time with them. Goches was just getting warmed up. It's like tomorrow I go to church and some of my students are at the church. Oh, wow. Hey, how are you doing? We just happen to be at the same place at the same time. And look, we just happen to be at a pro-Palestinian action at the same time, same place. The crowd burst into laughter. The Free Press obtained the video. Seated at a kefir-draped table, Goches said, some of the things that we do as teachers is to organize. We just have to be really intelligent on how we do that. We have to know that we're under the microscope. We have to know that Zionists and others are going to try to catch us in any way they can to get us into trouble. He continued, if you organize students, it's at your own risk, but I think it's something that's necessary we have to do. He told the audience of educators he once caught a Zionist teacher looking through his files. Goches warned the crowd to be wary of admin trying to be all chummy with you. You got to be very careful about that, even sometimes our own students. John Adams middle school teacher and panelist William Statuk agreed. We know that good history education is political education. And when we're coming up against political movements like the movement for Zionism that we disagree with, that we're in conflict with, the Zionists have their own form of political education. They employ their own tools of censorship. What are the tools of censorship employed by the Zionists? Apparently, they include accusing teachers who rail against Israel in the classroom of anti-Semitism. They've got the tape at the Free Press. Abigail Schreier has written about this, and it's well documented in public schools around the country where there's a heavy labor union contingent. Progressive activists are intent on indoctrinating your children. They're not there to educate. They're there to indoctrinate. They're taking kindergartners to pro-Palestinian rallies. This is why Republicans need to embrace school choice. Allow parents to get their kids out of these places. Activist-led organizations readily supply instructional material. Arab Resource and Organizing Center, Middle East Children's Alliance, Teaching While Muslim, Jewish Voice for Peace, Union del Barrio, and the Zen Education Project regularly furnish distorted histories with eliminationist rhetoric against Israel. In the years since the Hamas massacre of Israelis on October 7th, 2023, the anti-Israel materials have become pervasive. It's not surprising they're found in world history and current events lessons, but demonization of Israel is now taught in art, English, math, physics, and social emotional learning classes. Anti-Israel activism spreads through online curricula that are password protected, eluding parental oversight. It is pushed by teachers' unions, furnished by activist organizations, and communicated to children through deception. Anti-Israel radicals willingly stake their jobs for their cause. Y'all, not all of you can. Many of you cannot. But if you can get your child out of a public school and into a private school or a homeschool co-op, you're going to be better off. There are some very good public schools in this country. I am friends with some very good public school teachers. And even my friends who are public school teachers are sympathetic to people pulling their kids out of public school because of this. A public school teacher gets tenure of some kind and gets free reign and decides to indoctrinate kids. We are seeing an increase in activists who go into education not for the purpose of teaching your kid, but for the purpose of indoctrinating your kid. Free public school that we're all forced to pay for is becoming a captured institution by the left. Get your kid out of the government-run schools, into a private school, into a homeschool co-op, Not everybody can do homeschool. My wife actually thought about homeschooling our kids. And then COVID happened, and she had to help my hard-headed son with math. And she's like, if we do homeschooling, one of us is going to die. Totally understood. The two of them at the table, my daughter and I needed a bomb shelter when the two of them started math homework. My daughter and I were like, we need to go hide somewhere. I get it. We were not cut out for homeschool, but we've got them in a great classical Christian education school, and we let the hard-headed teachers battle it out, and the kids have thrived. They've thrived, and I realize not everybody can go. We actually contribute some of our money every year to into a fund that funds an opportunity scholarship for kids to be able to come to our school who otherwise couldn't afford to, with a tax credit. Get your kids out of government-run schools if you can. I mean, this is documented, but it's not just L.A. It's happening in big cities, the West Coast in particular. Washington, Oregon, California are very pervasive. Illinois, it's very pervasive because they have very strong teachers' unions. In a state like Georgia, where I am, or a state like Florida, they don't have strong activist teachers' unions because they're right-to-work states. But in pro-union states, the teachers' unions rule the roost. Remember, it was the same Los Angeles United School District Teachers Union that told us there was no evidence for learning loss during COVID. There was no evidence that kids were disadvantaged by being pulled out of school when school shut down. These people are communist indoctrinators. If you want to save the country, shut down the government schools. That's essentially where we are at this point. You want to save the country? Shut down the government schools. You know what you can replace them with as well? Hillsdale College actually gives free curricula for classical education, and they make it available for states to use in public schools, for private schools, for homeschool co-ops. You can get it for free from Hillsdale College. You can get so much from Hillsdale for free. They've had a mission since the 1800s to educate Americans where they are, regardless of their station in life. They were one of the very first colleges in the United States to desegregate. They really would love to have a relationship with you, and you can get that relationship at ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. You go sign up at ericforhillsdale.com. You get the Pocket Constitution, Declaration of Independence from Hillsdale College. You can get Imprimus completely for free. You can get Larry Arn's lectures on the Constitution, Victor Davis Hansen's lectures on citizenship for free. You can even get the Hillsdale College Podcast Network for free on your favorite podcast app. They're great conversations. Imprimus is something I have used for a very long time to keep in touch with the leading thoughts of the conservative movement. And now you can get that for free and the Pocket Constitution. Just go to Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com, ericforhillsdale.com. You go sign up with Hillsdale College today. You get involved in helping them spread their education mission across the country. And if you are part of a homeschool cooperative or a classical Christian school or just classical school, doesn't have to be Christian, you should look into Hillsdale College, a new curriculum for elementary and secondary education that's based on the classical model. EricForHillsdale.com. E-R-I-C-K. EricForHillsdale.com. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, too late. We're out of time for me to take phone calls. If you are listening out in Oklahoma, if you go to krmg.com or use the KRMG app, I'm going to be in Tulsa next Thursday, a week from today. We're going to be doing a live event in Tulsa, Oklahoma with listeners out there. We would love to have you. It is completely free. It'll start at 4 p.m. your time. It'll be at the ice hockey arena at the bar there. I'm looking forward to that place. Pucks, I think it's called. We'll be there. You've got to register to attend. It's completely free. You just need to get your name on the list. Go to krmg.com or use the KRMG app. I know we've got new listeners out of Oklahoma City. You're welcome to drive over. Just go to krmg.com, register for the event. Now, for the rest of you nationwide, I really would encourage you, if you will text the word Army to 33777, put in your information, because here's the thing. We've developed this action center. So in the coming year, as Congress pursues policies, whether the Republicans are in charge or not, we're going to be able to fire up this action center, and you'll be able to call your congressman or senator and say, do this or don't do this or consider this, particularly for the Senate, support this judge, oppose this judge. And then we'll be able to do it at the state level as well in our listing markets. We've done it a lot in Georgia in the past. for legislation in the state legislature in Georgia. We'll be firing it up across the nation as we expand. I'd love to have you be a part of it, but to be a part of it, you have to text the word Army to 33777. You'll get a link back. You click the link, you put in your first name, last name, zip code, and email. I don't need your phone number. I don't want your phone number. I don't want to text message you. Just want to be able to email you as the time comes. So text Army to 33777 and engage with us. It's been a lot of fun in the past. So, for example, when I was just a local host in Georgia doing this, for those of you nationwide, to give you a sense of this, in the state legislature in Georgia, they were doing school choice. We were able to get people around the state of Georgia to call and email their members of the state legislature to support it. Things like that. In Congress in the past, when they were advancing a immigration legislation and Trump's tax cuts, we were able to get people across the nation to call their member of Congress and tell them to support Trump's plan on immigration and support Trump's plan on tax cuts. And we actually give you a phone number where you click a link in email, and your phone rings, and it's me telling you I'm about to connect you to your member of Congress. Here's what you need to tell them. And you put in your zip code, I connect you to the member of Congress, and away you go. It's a way to make you an activist, a way to give you solutions. Not just because I don't know about y'all, but I kind of get tired of your typical people in conservative media saying, this sucks, this is terrible, but you don't provide a way to fix it. I want to provide you a way to fix it, and that way is to get you involved. I pay for this Action Center myself, and get you connected to your members of Congress, your state legislature, wherever you need. But all you got to do, it's really easy. All you got to do, doesn't cost you a thing. I don't sell the list. You're not going to get spam. You just text Army to 33777. I don't actually even sell the list, though. I can make money off of your email addresses. I choose not to. I want to make you effective and not spam you. Now, for those of you in Oklahoma who are on the list, I am going to send you an email to remind you about next week. I'd love to see you in Tulsa. If you want to come, you just got to register. So I'll send all that information out this afternoon. Text Army to 33777. All right. Y'all, this election is almost over. Tomorrow is the last Friday before the election. Early voting will come to an end. We'll see who voted early. We can't make predictions. If you saw the show notes this morning, Nate Silver has a big piece on why you can't interpret the early voting in the way people want to. But this almost comes to an end. Open line Friday tomorrow. See y'all then.